Welcome to the English department at TKU. We provide personalized care for every student. Our inspiring teaching empowers learners to excel. At TKU, we believe in AI-driven education. Our focus is on student success. We integrate ESG principles for a sustainable future. Experience the benefits of personalized learning. Enjoy customized support for every student. We empower you to achieve your academic goals. We help you unlock your full potential. Experience the future of education at TKU English, where AI innovation, digitalization, and ESG principles converge to create a sustainable learning environment.
Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to explore what makes a strong dietary evolution narrative. A powerful narrative doesn't just tell us what happened. It shows us why it mattered. It captures the person's thoughts, emotions, struggles, and the reasons behind their decisions. In this session, we'll look at 4 student examples. You'll see what works, what doesn't, and how to revise a basic outline into a compelling and meaningful story. Let's begin. Before we look at individual examples, let's talk about the common problems found in many student outlines. Many students describe how their diet changes from fast food to healthy eating or from omnivore to vegetarian. But the problem is that they often just list events without showing deeper meaning. Here are some key issues. First, students often describe changes without purpose. We see what happened, but we don't know why it mattered. Second, there's no clear or focused theme. The story doesn't explore a central idea like identity, ethics, or balance. Third, there's often no emotional conflict or turning point. No struggle, no challenge, no moment of decision. Fourth, topic sentences are usually too weak or generic, making it hard to follow the character's journey. And finally, the conclusions just summarize the diet. They tell us the result instead of showing us growth. So remember this important point. A strong story shows why the changes matter, not just what happened. Let's take a look at Sarah's story, a typical example of a student outline that lists the major steps in dietary change. Sarah grew up eating a lot of fast food, and over time, this affected her health. After a doctor warned her about her cholesterol levels, she decided to make a change. She tried becoming a vegetarian, but like many people, she struggled. She missed meat and found it difficult in social situations. Eventually, she settled on a flexitarian diet, eating mostly plant-based meals, but occasionally including meat or fish for balance. In the end, Sarah's outline concludes that her dietary evolution helped her become more confident and mindful about her health. This summary has potential, the structure is clear, and we can follow her progression. But in the next slide, we'll explore how to revise it to make this story more powerful and meaningful. Let's go through Sarah's topic sentences one by one. Introduction. Sarah is a 25-year-old marketing professional living in a busy city. This gives us background, but it's quite neutral. What's missing is a hint of her personality or values. Most importantly, it doesn't include a theme. Is this story about self-discipline, personal growth, or health awareness? A strong narrative should hint at that from the beginning. Stage 1. Sarah's diet was quick and easy, mainly consisting of fast food and takeout. This is a clear description of her eating habits, but it lacks emotional insight. How did she feel? Tired? Disconnected from her body? Including even one descriptive phrase could make this much more vivid. Stage 2. After a doctor's visit, Sarah realized her unhealthy habits had consequences. This is the turning point, the moment that prompts change. It's functional, but it tells us what happened without showing us Sarah's reaction. A stronger sentence would capture the emotional weight of that realization. Stage 3. Switching to vegetarianism was a challenge for Sarah. This sentence is too general. What kind of challenge? Being specific about the nature of the challenge would make the story more relatable and human. Stage 4. Sarah eventually found balance by adopting a more flexible, plant-based diet. This is a structural sentence. It shows progress. However, the word balance is vague. Did she feel less pressure, more energy, or greater control? A bit more detail would strengthen the conclusion of this stage. Conclusion. Sarah's dietary evolution also changed how she approached life. This is meant to reflect growth, but it's too abstract. What exactly changed? Good conclusions should reflect on the values gained, not just restate that something changed. Now let's break down what's not working in Sarah's story. First, the narrative follows a linear path, but it lacks emotional depth. We know what happened. She went from fast food to vegetarianism to a flexitarian diet, but we don't know what she really thought or felt during these changes. Second, Sarah's personality is missing. There's no sense of her voice, attitude, or point of view. What kind of person is she? How does she normally deal with challenges? Right now, she feels more like a concept than a character. Third, although health, time, and confidence are mentioned, these themes are underdeveloped. A strong story should take one or two of these and explore them more deeply. Instead, her story touches on several ideas without going deep into any of them. Finally, there is no real climax or turning point. We don't see a moment of doubt, struggle, or decision that changes her mindset. The events move smoothly, but the growth is not felt. So the takeaway here is this. If you want your narrative to be powerful, it needs more than just a timeline. It needs depth, emotion, and meaning. Now let's look at Wayne's dietary evolution. Wayne grew up in a traditional Taoist family in Taiwan, where meat, especially pork and fish, was a big part of every meal. Culturally and personally, he strongly preferred meat-based dishes and disliked vegetarian options. His transformation begins when health issues arise. Wayne starts noticing stomach problems and skin breakouts. This prompts him to think more critically about his diet. He gradually reduces meat and begins to eat more plant-based foods, becoming a flexitarian. Later, he's influenced by his vegan girlfriend, who encourages him to try even more plant-based meals. Eventually, Wayne shifts to a pescatarian diet. He cut out red meat and focuses on seafood. This change improves his health and strengthens his relationship as they begin to share not just meals, but values. Wayne's story highlights how relationships and lifestyle values can influence personal choices and how change isn't always immediate or internally motivated. In the next slide, we'll analyze what works in greater detail. Let's now examine Wayne's topic sentences and see how his story is structured. Stage 1. Wayne's diet starts with a strong preference for meat-based meals, influenced by his family and culture. This sentence does a good job of showing both personality and cultural background. It gives us a reason for his starting point, which helps ground the narrative. However, it could be more vivid. How strong was this preference? Was he proud of it? Did he resist vegetarian food? Stage 2. Wayne starts to consider changing his diet after dealing with health problems like stomach issues and pimples. This shows a trigger for change, which is essential. But again, the emotion is missing. Was he embarrassed, frustrated, or surprised by these health issues? A strong story should include the character's reactions, not just the events. Stage 3. Wayne makes a bigger change to his diet after dating a vegan girlfriend. This sentence introduces another major influence, a person close to him. While this is believable, it can make the character seem passive, as if he's changing only because someone else asked him to. This is a common issue in story writing. Characters are affected by others, but don't reflect deeply on their own values. Conclusion. There's no distinct topic sentence here. The conclusion just summarizes key factors, health issues, and his girlfriend's influence, leading to greater food consciousness. While this wrap-up makes sense, it doesn't show transformation. It's a summary, not a reflection. In short, Wayne's topic sentences offer a clear timeline, but they don't develop enough emotional depth or internal reflection. Now let's take a moment to reflect on what's not working in Wayne's story. First, the main issue is that most of Wayne's changes are caused by other people. He doesn't seem to reflect deeply or make decisions based on personal values. His girlfriend influences his diet, and his health issues force change, but we don't see him struggling with those changes or deciding to take control. Second, there's a missing topic sentence in the conclusion. The story just trails off by summarizing past events instead of adding insight or reflection. Third, the conclusion feels like a summary, not a reflection. It doesn't explore how Wayne's mindset has evolved, and that's where real transformation should be shown. Fourth, the theme is unclear. Is this story about love? About health? About cultural identity? It mentions all of these, but never develops any one idea deeply enough. Also, there's no turning point. There's no moment where Wayne struggles internally or has to make a tough decision. Without that, the story lacks emotional intensity. And finally, as a result of all this, the entire narrative lacks emotional resonance. We don't feel what Wayne feels, so the story doesn't leave a strong impression. Let's now explore Haoyu's journey, another example of a student's outline. Haoyu is introduced as a busy freelance designer. Because of his lifestyle, he relies heavily on fast food, which sets the stage for future health issues. The first change occurs when a doctor warns him about high blood pressure and weight problems. This prompts Haoyu to take better care of his health by exploring clean eating. Later, an environmental lecture introduces him to plant-based living, and he transitions to a vegetarian diet. This change is no longer just about health. It's now linked to environmental awareness and ethical concerns. Eventually, while traveling, Haoyu meets people with a more flexible approach. He adopts a flexitarian diet, mostly plant-based, but with some animal products. This gives him more balance in his social and professional life. His story ends with improved health, more awareness of sustainability, and greater adaptability in his lifestyle. This outline does move from stage to stage logically. However, the story lacks emotional depth, character voice, and a clearly developed theme. Let's take a closer look at Haoyu's topic sentences. Introduction. Haoyu is 32 years old, a freelance designer with his own studio. This gives us the basic context, but it doesn't reveal anything about his values or beliefs. A stronger opening would include an emotional or thematic hint, such as his attitude toward food or lifestyle pressure in the city. Stage 1. Initially, Haoyu's diet consisted mostly of fast food like pizza, burgers, and instant noodles due to his busy schedule. This sentence clearly sets up a problem. It shows cause and effect, though it could be stronger if it mentioned his indifference toward health or awareness. Stage 2. The first change came when Haoyu discovered he had mild high blood pressure and weight issues. Here we get the external trigger for change. But the sentence is emotionally flat. How did he feel when he found out? Stage 3. Later, after attending an environmental lecture, Haoyu switched to a vegetarian diet. This is another major shift, but it happens quickly. What inspired him in the lecture? Did he feel guilt or inspiration? These are opportunities to connect with readers more deeply. Stage 4. On a trip, How You met people who practiced a flexitarian lifestyle, and he decided to adopt this approach. This stage is interesting because it shows social influence and personal adaptation. However, it could be improved by showing How Yu's reflection. Why did flexibility appeal to him? Conclusion. In conclusion, his journey reflects growth and finding balance. This is overly general. What kind of growth? What does balance mean in his life? A strong conclusion needs specific, reflective language. Overall, How Yu's topic sentences give us a clear timeline, but they need more emotion, personality, and a guiding theme. Although How Yu's story includes all the right stages, there are several issues that weaken its narrative power. First, the story feels more like a report than a personal journey. It lists events in a logical order, but without reflection, emotion, or character voice, it doesn't read like a compelling narrative. Second, the themes are unclear. Health? Environmental values? Flexibility? They're all mentioned, but none is developed deeply enough to guide the story. Third, How Yu's character lacks emotional depth. We don't know how he responds to change. Is he excited, overwhelmed, or doubtful? Without feelings, his journey feels flat and impersonal. And finally, there's no strong turning point. The story moves from fast food to health, to vegetarianism, to flexitarianism. All the transitions feel smooth and external. A more powerful story includes a moment of struggle, doubt, or breakthrough that transforms the character's mindset. All in all, How Yu's outline has a good structure, but to become a strong story, it needs clearer emotional moments, a stronger theme, and a turning point that shows internal growth. Now let's look at Jamie's story, a stronger example compared to the others. Jamie's journey begins with no dietary limitations and no awareness of food ethics. This makes the transformation more meaningful when he later changes his habits. Unlike the others, Jamie's starting point is neutral, and that sets up an interesting contrast. The turning point comes when he begins dating a vegan partner who challenges his thinking and introduces him to ethical concerns about animal consumption. This influence pushes him to try vegetarianism, and here, the story includes something very important: struggle. Jamie faces real challenges, especially with cravings. This adds emotional realism and shows internal conflict, something missing in many student outlines. Eventually, he chooses a flexitarian diet, not out of convenience, but as a balance between his old habits and new values. This gives the story both resolution and depth. Unlike other stories, Jamie's outline shows a character who is challenged, makes a deliberate choice, and gains personal insight. These are all signs of a more effective narrative. Let's now take a deeper look at Jamie's topic sentences. First, let's look at the theme statement. A person's diet can be affected by their religious beliefs, ethics, or family. This sentence tries to express a theme, but it's too broad and impersonal. Jamie's story doesn't mention religion at all, so the reference feels disconnected. A better version might be: Jamie's experience shows how personal relationships and ethical reflection can reshape someone's eating habits and identity. That would make it feel more focused and unique to Jamie. Background: Jamie is confident and raised in a wealthy family with an omnivorous diet. This establishes personality and privilege, helping us understand his starting point. The next sentence: although most people stick to the same diet throughout their lifetime, there are people who change their diet. This is meant to introduce the journey, but it sounds too general. It needs to bring us back to Jamie. Then we get this sentence. 2 months after being vegetarian, Jamie noticed a few challenges that need solving. This introduces internal struggle, which is excellent, but it could be stronger if it mentioned the exact challenges or feelings: hunger, social pressure, and doubt. Next, in order to regain appetite while limiting meat, Jamie decides to try a flexitarian diet. This is clear and purposeful. It shows both cause and decision, which is a strength. And finally, Jamie gets used to less meat, becomes aware of animal cruelty, and adopts a balanced diet. This wraps up the story well and gives insight into what he learned. Still, it could be more emotionally reflective. What changed in Jamie's values? Overall, Jamie's story includes conflict, change, and conclusion. But to make it excellent, it needs a clearer, personalized theme and more emotionally specific language. Let's end by reviewing why this story structure is effective and how you can apply it to your own writing. First, conflict drives the narrative. It's not just about listing what happened. It's about showing the struggle, the hesitation, the decisions. That's what makes a story engaging. Second, good narratives show character growth. Your readers should see how the character changes, not just in their eating habits, but in how they think, feel, and understand themselves. Growth adds depth and meaning. Third, a strong story feels like a personal journey. It's not just a timeline, it's a transformation. When readers see someone wrestle with real choices, they connect with this story emotionally. And finally, adding ethical awareness or deeper reflection makes the story relevant. When a character starts thinking about their values, like animal welfare, health, or sustainability, it upgrades the narrative from a routine experience to a meaningful one. Therefore, as you revise your outlines, remember that the strongest stories are not just about food. They're about people. Make sure your character grows, struggles, and reflects. That's what turns a report into a story. Now let's take a moment to evaluate the one story that actually tries to include a theme, the Jamie story. Among all the stories, Jamie's is the only one that has a theme statement at the beginning. That's a good sign. However, it still needs improvement. The theme, a person's diet, can be affected by their religious beliefs, ethics, or family, is overly broad and generic. It sounds more like something from a textbook than a personal insight. It doesn't connect specifically to Jamie's story. For example, Jamie never talks about religion, so including it in the theme just adds confusion. It distracts rather than adds focus. Most importantly, this theme does not hint at Jamie's growth, from being unaware of food ethics to gaining personal insight through love, challenge, and adaptation. A stronger theme would capture that transformation. A focused theme strengthens the story by giving readers a lens to understand everything that happens. It creates narrative purpose and emotional engagement. As we finish, here's something important to remember. Changing how you eat is not just about food. It's about your belief and identity. Many people think switching diets is just about health or convenience, but often it's much deeper. Food decisions are shaped by family traditions, ethical beliefs, personal experiences, and social influences. That's why your dietary journey tells a story about who you are, what you care about, what you struggle with, and how you grow. When you write your narrative, you're not just explaining what changed, you're showing us why it mattered. To close, let's review the key ingredients that make a personal narrative meaningful and powerful. First, begin with the character's background. Show us who the person is, their lifestyle, environment, or mindset, so we understand what shaped their original habits. Second, build your story around a personal theme. A good theme connects every step of the journey. It should be more than general. It should reflect the values and experiences of your character. Third, include a clear motivation or trigger for change. People don't just wake up one day and stop eating meat. something usually pushes them. Fourth, highlight emotional or social struggles. Change is rarely easy, especially when it comes to food. People face pressure, doubt, and cravings. Let your readers feel that tension. Fifth, show a turning point. A decisive moment that represents growth. That's where your character stops reacting and starts choosing their path. Finally, end with reflection. Don't just list the results. Help us understand what the journey meant. What values changed? What does the character now believe about food, identity, or life?